Hi, this is Jeff Moss, and welcome to Leadership 101. I'm really excited tonight to introduce you to my good friend, Brad Caldwell. Brad actually lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I've known him for some 2 to 3 years now. Brad is somebody that I refer to as a brilliant marketer. I think when you're done listening to this conversation tonight, you will understand what I mean. So, Brad, welcome. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. On top of you being a brilliant marketer, you're also an ordained minister. You're
Yeah.
the owner of 2 to 3 businesses now.
Yes, sir.
You help businesses make money. Why don't you
Yep.
tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you've gotten to this point in your life?
Man, I am. It's an incredibly dramatic story, but in some ways, depending on how you tell it, it's really boring. I am from Durham, North Carolina. I'm from Durham, North Carolina. I'm the oldest of two. My parents are awesome. They've been married coming up on 44 years this month. They're wonderful. My sister lives near them down in North Myrtle Beach. My wife and our kids call Wilmington home. I didn't become a believer until college, but I did grow up in church, and it's a good one. I don't have any like weird stories, but I also juxtapose that with lost my best friend tragically in a car accident when we were seniors in high school. And it was a bit of a tailspin for a couple of years for me. From that, the Southern Baptist in me wants to say my testimony became very sensational. And so I went from really, really bad living to kind of a jolt. And then a couple fraternity brothers actually led me to Christ. Ministry came on. Yeah, ministry came on very quickly thereafter. And I've been able to, speak in conferences all over the world. I really, really love South Asia, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh. I've been able to be in those places. Been able to be in Jamaica and Haiti, Mexico, Cayman Islands. Cayman Islands is always a nice call when anybody asks you to come there to work. I just talked a bunch and went to the beach. It was perfect. It's like living in Wilmington. And then I became a full-time pastor not long after I became a dad. I became the senior pastor of a church and probably saw some of the things in ministry that I think for some ministers, for some Christians, it takes the wind out of your sails a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, it nearly sank the battleship. And I would say non-believing people, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, people who don't believe that Jesus Christ is who he says he is, or that he did what we say he did, allowed me to show them more of the gospel than I felt comfortable showing at church.
Yeah.
And so for 6 years after I left full-time ministry, I was the on-call pastor at a funeral home, which means all I dealt with was people I didn't know in the midst of loss and tragedy. That is a breeding ground for authenticity and simplicity, and the gospel is not complicated. People are complicated.
I read, I guess a couple of years ago, I was on a funeral home, website.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting thing. They had a thing you could click on that basically said the wrong thing to say at a funeral. And they had this litany of things that people that are going through that tragic moment in their life don't really need to hear. Like they're not in pain anymore.
Yeah. I understand. They're no longer suffering. Yeah, you work in the business long enough, and the people who ran that funeral home were some of my closest friends and their parents. And so imagine going over there to be the pastor and everybody at work giggling because Brad's a pastor, because those are the people who've known me since I was like 7 or 8. Like we were ditching school and sneaking out of our houses together, driving cars before we had licenses, like terrible stuff that if my kid hears this show and does it, Parker, I'll kill you.
But Jesus was famous for hanging with the worst of the worst.
Well, and I actually think that season, that 6-year window where I got to work Isaiah 61 says that God has called me to bind up the brokenhearted,
Yeah.
and to bring peace to the afflicted. And that was all I did, because the rest of the time I was the director of hospitality at a Chick-fil-A. Okay. And those two jobs, I think, coincided to really give me a branding mindset, because Jesus is really, really palatable if you know how he branded himself.
Wow. That's an interesting thought.
In Mark chapter 2, everyone's like, well, we should just tell him you're the Son of God. And what does he say? Oh, it's not the right time. It wasn't time for that marketing campaign yet. Yeah. It was still true, but it wasn't the commercial that was running. The commercial that was running was this weird homeless guy who was really kind and thoughtful. And if you showed him a little bit of integrity and you listened to him, he could make the lame walk. Mm-hmm. That's good branding. And so people are like, who is this guy? When they stopped asking who he was, that's when he said, I am. Yeah. The narrative changed when the audience changed. And that's marketing, man.
That's interesting. So how do you make the bridge to Spark Business Solutions, which, oh, by the way, is the name of Brad's company? Brad is famously known. He doesn't ever say refer me. He says Brad me. So when he's out marketing and talking about, how you can help him in the business, he doesn't say refer me. He says Brad me, And it's funny. People started saying that, and people that know Brad don't say refer me either. They say Brad me, and everybody knows what they're talking about. So how do you make this transition from pastor to marketer to Spark Business Solutions?
So again, normal, working 2 jobs, being a dad. My wife's finishing nursing school, being a mom. She gets her first job in nursing. It's going great. She finds out she's pregnant. She's about to have a baby. My oldest and I, who at the time, Parker would have been 4, mm-hmm. coming home from a UNC basketball game, and we're in a car accident. Wow. And super long story short, I have a birth defect that has a plastic shunt that goes from my abdomen all the way up into my brain. Mm-hmm. And it moved. Mm. And when it moved, I didn't notice anything at impact. But 3 months later, I couldn't remember Halloween that we had just had. I don't remember Thanksgiving. I do remember pieces of my wife's nursing school graduation. Mm-hmm. I don't remember Christmas. I get those 2 events confused. And imagine this, my 5-year-old, when he turned 5, he had a sleepover. I've seen me in pictures playing with kids, and I don't remember the sleepover at all. So it was the best sleepover we've ever had, because I don't remember any of it. And so if you've got kids and you've had sleepovers, those are awful. Yeah. Those are awful. They're terrible things. I don't know why we created that, but in that context, I had to have brain surgery. It ended sort of momentarily, but then ultimately it really ended my career at Chick-fil-A, because that's an intense career. It's a lot of work. It is what people think it is. It's a wonderful company, and you never, ever stop. We were at a very good store. And
so the Sunday off was needed.
Oh my gosh. You ran into Sunday, especially when you're in leadership. Yeah. Because you're trying to do high level leadership development, but you're also making sure 14-year-olds do change properly.
So it's funny. I think you and I have talked in the past that I grew up in Georgia, obviously the home of Chick-fil-A. I actually went to Jonesboro Baptist Church one Sunday just to hear Truett Cathy teach Sunday school. Yeah. A lot of folks want to ridicule that brand or ridicule that company and say, oh, it's just a facade. They're not real. They're not real Christian, whatever, Yeah. And they did the same to Jimmy Carter, who's from my hometown, that Jimmy Carter this, Jimmy Carter that. I'm like, I actually know this man you're talking about, and he truly is the humanitarian he represents himself to be. You may not agree with his politics. Yeah. But your experience at Chick-fil-A, are they the real deal? Are they living that?
So we were in Durham at a store there, and what makes that location very, very unique, one, that store was built the year after I graduated high school. So it's built kind of in my neighborhood. but not a part of my high school experience. There was an old bed and breakfast there when I was a kid. And so when I came back as an adult to this Chick-fil-A that everybody loved, I met the owner. Tony is a wonderful guy. He was a great guy then. He's a great guy now. It's very funny. I used to make fun of him for having 3 daughters. And now, as luck would have it, I have 3 sons. And he'll give it right back to me now. There was a store. South Point Mall is a really large mall in Durham. There's a store right outside of that mall location. And the guy that owns it is a terrific guy. His name's John. John's mom, I knew John's mom lived in Virginia. I knew John, I think he punted at Auburn, and his family's from Virginia. And that's all I knew. And then one day he said something about his uncle coming to town. Oh, and that's when I found out that his uncle is Dan Cathy.
Yeah.
The president of Chick-fil-A. Yeah. His mom is Truett's daughter. So John is the grandson. And John and I went to church together. Our stores would meet together a lot because there were 2 very solid stores doing really, really good work together, and in very different demographics because Durham's pretty big that way. And I've met Tim Tassopoulos. I think he was the COO when I was there. I met Dan Cathy. He came to our store. His brother Bubba, who was the CFO, came to our store. Their executive council came because of some of the things we were doing there that were really good. I have been in conference calls, private emails behind secure servers, and it's a wonderful place to work.
Are you aware, where they're from down there in Georgia is called The Rock, believe it or not. Are you familiar with the camp they have there for special needs kids?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, how many companies do that?
Yeah, I mean, we were there. I was there when their big controversy over where their funding goes came up. And the misnomer, of course, is that Chick-fil-A funds things. Chick-fil-A does not. It's privately owned. The Cathy family has a foundation, not Chick-fil-A. And during that time, you really got to see, like, the very first message internally from corporate was an apology. Like, that doesn't make any sense. He didn't say anything that he didn't actually believe. He stood behind what he said. He might have clarified, but he stood behind what he said. He opened lines of communication for operators who are allowed to disagree with him, because there were plenty. And he apologized to all of us because he said, no one's going to boycott corporate. They're not allowed in the door. We have security. You have a drive-through window.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm sorry we put you in this position. We didn't mean to. And it was that kind of narrative that really, like, when you say you work in marketing at Chick-fil-A, no, you don't. You don't develop anything. You take all of this information and then you try to figure out the proper way to put it in the context of the community that you live in. And so that was my first real look at marketing. And it's difficult because people assume things about your company. They assume that because it has a lot of really high level platitudes that it's super expensive. You'll hear people talk about the cost of Chick-fil-A, and it's comparable. It's comparable in every market. It's designed to be that way because it's never the first restaurant in the market. We're never first. That's McDonald's job.
I know that we're going to have to do more of these calls because there's just so much you have to offer people and you so freely give. I've seen Brad on a number of occasions, basically with no expectation to come back to me because I want to sell you something. Brad will lay out a complete marketing plan for somebody and explain to them branding, customer awareness, developing your market and all. If we were to talk about that just for a minute, brand new entrepreneurs that haven't bought a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A or, a known brand, what's the initial advice you give a new entrepreneur, a new business owner in terms of first things they need to do to develop their marketing plan or to develop their end game, which is to win?
Yeah, marketing must always do one of 3 things. It can do all of them, but it must always do one of them. Marketing educates, it demonstrates, or it connects. It has to. It either educates, demonstrates, or it connects. Expertise is always shared. That's why we work so hard to become an expert in our field. Like in your combat experience, in your military experience, once you get to a certain level of expertise, you are now approached with the opportunity to bring someone up from behind and help them get comfort, familiarity, combat ready, whatever it is. There's a level of expertise in the military. There's a level of expertise in the most menial of jobs. Mm-hmm. Like, well, you've been there for 10 years. This person's in the cubicle next to you. Kind of show them how the program works. Like we do it all the time. In my wife's career in nursing, it's the same way. Even if your job is not to teach, you teach. Like when the minute you tell someone where something is, they don't know where it's at, you're educating them. And so if you do it with intentionality, it changes it because it positions you as the authority. And then if you're doing that, now you can demonstrate. Like we often say we're demonstrating our business prowess by telling people how much we're up year to date.
Right.
But that doesn't demonstrate anything. Just means more people bought what you sold.
Mm-hmm.
And in capitalism, sometimes marketing takes the cheap road. We say, well, we have more money, so we're clearly doing it right. But in 2007, that's what all the people selling houses thought. Then 2008 rolled around and the thing that we'd always done collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason people are forecasting a recession today, here in like maybe 12 months, but they're saying as recessions go, it won't be horrible, is because once everybody saw a pandemic, all the people who had seen bad things happen before adjusted. Everybody adjusted. Markets adjusted. For 2 years of economic boom for sellers in the housing market, realtors have been saying, be careful, it could change. Where 5 years ago, realtors were like, oh, it's awesome, everything's fine, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
The real pros are adjusting. The real pros are adjusting, and they're showing you the work. And then connecting is just the challenge with marketing connection. And it's where companies like mine, where Spark comes from, is that you don't have the time to connect because you're busy running a company. Mm-hmm. Or as an owner, you want to connect and you don't have the equipment to connect. You don't know the tone of voice of your brand. So College Hunks would only sound like Jeff Moss. But if I went to College Hunks in Arkansas, it would sound different. That's bad branding.
Right.
So, I mean, when you were first starting out, we were having those conversations and it was some of the, here's some Jeff that maybe we want to poke up into College Hunks. And here's some College Hunks that I think people are missing. That's one of the first conversations we had. Yeah. People think it's just muscle heads and t-shirts.
Yeah.
And you were like, there's so much more to the narrative we're not telling.
Yeah.
That's because you saw the marketing wasn't connected.
I think that's true. You know, in a lot of businesses, you get so caught up in telling the features and benefits of what you mm-hmm. do, you completely forget to tell the story of who you are and what you stand for. So the to me, branding, you know, surpasses, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, we'll solve your problem. It becomes the true who you are, what you stand for, the tenor of your business. So I think, you know, my comment the other moment ago was, you know, this isn't like hanging a McDonald's shingle for most people. You're trying to start a business. Hopefully you've got a product. I do love the Shark Tank. And I think Jerzavec said one night that most people, you know, build a product and then they try to build a company around a product. Smart entrepreneurs see a problem, develop a solution to the problem, and then they build a company around the solution. So in that vein, you sit down with somebody who has done that. I mean, what does that initial conversation kind of sound like? And what makes sense from your perspective as a brilliant marketer?
Yeah, thank you, brother. I think one of the things that I think is new, I think it's newly developing, is I think we've realized in marketing, the language has always been a little bit predatory. We say, who are you targeting with your marketing? What's your unique sales proposition? You know, we mention USPs all the time. Mm-hmm. What are your KPIs and your USPs and your ROIs? And those are all things that demonstrate how well you're doing. or how good you are. And one of the challenges of consumerism today is a whole lot more than ever before. Well, what have you done for me? Is a consumer question now. Mm-hmm. And we might not like it. We might like it. It might be right in our wheelhouse, or it might be completely foreign to us. It doesn't matter, because if the consumers don't consume, then you go broke. So what the consumer says dictates. It dictates in entrepreneurship. It dictates in capitalism. It absolutely dictates in the United States. And so when we think about some of the things that are changing, they don't want to know your USP nearly as much as they want to know your UVP. What is your unique value proposition? And so again, this is where seminary just will never leave me. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. And for finding it, the man sells everything he has and he buys the field. And then the next passage says he finds a pearl of great worth and he covers it up. And then he protects it. Those are two very different parables. Mm-hmm. He sees the value of the thing for him, and so he covers it. Or he sees the value of the thing as it serves, and he sells everything he's got to buy the whole field, not just the section where he saw the value. Because when you express value to someone, it automatically tells them, but wait, there's more. That's what an infomercial is. An infomercial is, this is the greatest pan ever made. It's the greatest pan ever made. It's the greatest pan ever made. This is the greatest pan ever made. It's the greatest pan ever made. They'll talk about what the pan actually does like 1/10 of the time. The rest of the time, they're telling you it's great. It's great. But wait, there's
more.
Yeah. They're not saying it's going to cost you more. They're not saying here comes a bigger discount. They're saying there's more value. And we used to make fun of the QVC, but now we're saying, I don't know, maybe there's something to it, because you don't put your rates on your website.
Well, Zig Ziglar talked about, I'm still a big fan of Zig Ziglar, even though he's passed, God rest his soul. But, Zig Ziglar talked about, I would rather tell you one time why my frying pan costs what it does than tell you for years why I sold you an inferior or bad product.
Right.
And he would, set that value proposition you're talking about on the front end of selling. I think that what people often miss is authenticity. They miss being genuine. They miss the fact that in today's world and market, people are less trustworthy than they were probably 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. They want to see people actually show up, do what they said they were going to do it with flair, and leave. Yeah. And then if I have a problem, they would call you to come back and undo or fix whatever you did. And what they're finding is they can't get you back on the phone. And those are the stories that resonate on Google. So once again, you're advising a new business owner in maybe a service generated industry, and we know people like this. What's your advice to them as it relates to performance and marketing, connecting marketing and performance and vice versa?
Yeah. So I might have told you this before. I'm writing a book.
No, talk about it. What are you writing?
It's a book on authenticity. So I've developed a formula that I think can teach anyone how to be authentic. But what the challenge is that what we've done with language is that we think that the word authentic means something good, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Just like we think when you encourage somebody to do something, well, I could walk up and push you. I'm encouraging you to move.
Yeah.
And authenticity, like, there are two things I love to watch. One is my 3-year-old. He'll be 3 in a couple of weeks. That's the most authentic human being on earth. Yeah. He has no filter. If he's unhappy, he screams. If he's happy, he laughs. If he's got to go to the bathroom, you are going to find out as quickly as he thinks about it, unless he'd rather be doing anything else. Then he's just going to pee his pants.
True.
Because he's so authentic. Yeah. But so what we would say is the definition of his authenticity is that his beliefs and his behaviors intersect. What he says and what he does are the exact same.
Okay.
As he gets older, he will learn to lie better.
Yeah.
He will learn to lie to you better, to me better, to himself better. He will learn in this house of an omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient God. And he'll lie to him too.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we get older, there is a tearing away of the connection between our beliefs and our behaviors. We tell kids, don't yell. Don't yell. I say it all the time. I hate yelling.
Mm-hmm.
Loud as I am, I hate it. Don't like the sound. Makes my head hurt. And since
Right.
it bothers me, I'm telling you to stop. But then I'll tell you that I'm a coach. Well, if I'm coaching you to do something simply because it pisses me off, that's not coaching. That's inauthentic. It's a place where what I'm saying and what I'm doing aren't intersecting. So another group of people who are incredibly authentic, this one's terrible. It's in the book. I apologize. But serial killers, they're incredibly authentic. Everyone's going to be like, well, they never really said much. Right, because if they open their mouth, they'd be like, I like killing people. They would say something ridiculous.
It's
like,
true.
do you have any idea how many people are in the backyard? Like, they'll say something insane to you because they're nuts. And so the least authentic thing about them is just their silence.
And you're sitting there when you hear something like that, you're like, oh, they're just kidding. And they're
Yeah.
actually telling you the truth. You
Right.
just kind of ignore it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You
seriously.
glossed over when BTK said, I would kill him.
Yeah.
And no, he did, dude. That
Yeah.
dude disappeared 6 months later.
Well,
So
yeah,
like authenticity is tricky because it's something we say in the positive realm that we desire.
right.
But when we see it in a negative realm, we spurn it. So we have a really weird relationship with authenticity. And so when we talk to businesses about being your authentic self, you must be, as a business, as a brand, not as yourself. The brand must be self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the brand is not self-aware, you don't know how to talk about yourself, not accurately. You don't know who you're talking to. And if you don't know how to talk about yourself and you don't know who you're talking to, then when you hire Mikey and you train him, you're going to train him how to move some stuff, how to quote a move. You're going to make sure he has the right uniform on. But when someone says, where do you work and what's it about? Mikey's going to tell you whatever Mikey thinks it's about because you didn't give that self-awareness to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when a business becomes inauthentic because you don't know how to speak about yourself. So it ends up in marketing. Marketing reveals cigarettes died 40 years before they died. 40 years before everyone was like, nope, cancer, 100%, 100%, definitely cancer. In my lifetime, camels and cowboys and supermodels.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I remember the commercials.
And nobody said anything about it.
Mm-mm.
And I'm from North Carolina. Joe Camel, Cindy Crawford smoking a cigarette, the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything about it. And then one day someone said, you guys know this is all false. And the whole thing collapsed. And immediately the government was like, oh, this marketing sucks. Hey, are these things really causing cancer?
Mm-hmm.
And it almost went that way.
And it was like Shazam, right?
Yeah.
Really sucking this down into your lungs is bad.
Marketing became the tail that wagged the dog.
I'm passionate about getting people to quit smoking. I've gotten several of my employees to quit by just being transparent and honest with them about what's going to happen. And in fact, I've got a gentleman on Oak Island right now that's been going through a terrible time, and he's been authentic on Facebook saying, if you haven't started smoking, you don't start. And if you're smoking, stop, because look what I've been going through.
Yeah.
So I want to just touch another subject matter point with you here, because I think the listeners would be very interested in hearing your firsthand account of this. So in the middle of starting Spark Business Strategies a few years ago, not long after this pandemic comes into effect, your spouse, the mother of your 3 children, is an ICU nurse and is taking care of COVID patients one of which happened to be one of our business partners here in Wilmington that you and I have worked with for years. And we that's terrible. We wound up losing him to COVID, and it tore our hearts out because he was a young man. But talk a little bit about Grace, and I mean, what a great name for her, considering what she does. Talk a little bit about what you were a witness to during the pandemic and the way your wife handled her day to day.
And you know what's crazy is that in 2019, for those who don't know regional magazines, Wilma is a women's magazine in Wilmington, quite well known in the business circles here. They do a really good job. They give out an award called Women to Watch, and she was the recipient of the Wilma Women to Watch award in the health category in 2019. And in 2020, she saw more death than she's ever seen.
Yeah.
And to say, like we say, frontline workers, and this is where sometimes when marketing's so good, it inoculates us to the truth we're discussing. Mm-hmm. And when we say like we're doing it right now, if you're in a current event, if you're trying to stamp when we're talking right now, Russia's attacking Ukraine.
Yeah. We've
talked so much about bombs in Ukraine. I think we're forgetting there are bombs in Ukraine. Yeah. And we'll say, CNN, Fox, MSNBC will have a ticker of people dying. And they'll say, remember your frontline workers. But when you talk about your time on the front line, you were trained to be on a front line.
Yes.
That is what that entire career was.
That's what it meant too.
Right. Like it was
line defense. Yeah.
If you do this your whole life and you never see active duty, you served in the most charmed season in American history. Because in the last 20 years, you couldn't have done it. In the 20 years before that, that's when all the deserts started happening, the storms and the eagles and all that stuff. I was in elementary school when that stuff started. So my entire life has known some sort of military presence somewhere in the world other than our nation. And those for some sort of combat purpose that we knew about, not even the stuff we don't even know about.
Right.
So like people are training to go to fight for something, to protect something, to defeat something, whatever. Now imagine if at College Hunks or at Spark Business Strategies or Don't Tell My Mom or here in my house, something were to happen and all of a sudden we're now a combat zone. And you're like, hey, really smart marketing strategist, go save a life.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I can save a life. Now not be able to, but have to watch them for 2 years. Nurses' jobs are to save lives. They save and sustain life. They make life better. Even if your life is ending, their job is to make the end of it better. If your life just began and you're in mother baby, they're trying to make the first 3 days of your life perfect. For you, your mom, your dad, the people in the waiting room, the whole narrative of a hospital is to make it better. Make it better, whatever it is. And as it related to COVID in critical care, there was no making it better. There was watching it get worse.
And they knew it too. I mean, they knew there were, once you got to this point, there was no real chance of coming back.
Yep. The way I've explained it is when we were talking about who gets it back when it was rare to get COVID, you'd be like, well, 98% of the population doesn't have it. You'd be like, right, that's true. Now imagine that 2% of the globe has it. If a third of that goes to critical care, 99% of them die.
You know, it's a human factor. And I'm going to draw two different way different parallels here.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I was a guy that wasn't getting downsized and I'd go to the meetings about, you know, the pitfalls of, you know, you feel like guilty because you got, you know, you still have a job and they don't. I'm like, nah, you feel guilty when you're the guy that survived combat and your buddy next to you got shot. I don't feel guilty I got to keep my job. I feel terrible for the ones that didn't. But they were talking about, dealing with change and all of that kind of stuff. And I kept saying to leaders, I said, don't you guys understand that if you're one of the ones that got let go, they're the ones that are hurting seriously. I can't believe we're doing a class on trying to tell the people that got to keep their jobs how to feel better about it. Give me a break. The same applies. You say, well, only 2% got it. Well, it pretty well stinks if you're part of the 2%,
Yeah.
So I just have never been able to rationalize that thought process that only X% have this and only X% don't. Well, it stinks pretty bad. Mallory's illness, my daughter's illness, like 0.025% of epileptics have it as bad as she does. Well, she's part of that 0.025%.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it stinks pretty bad to be in that vein. But so Grace, she did some pretty, she did some unbelievable things during that period of time. I love she developed a new mask, right, for nurses.
So she started the Joy Project. It got a little bit of regional attention. But she did the bands. So when first responders, all of them, were wearing the N95 mask, it was cutting into people's ears. So she developed the headband with the buttons that you could strap it over the buttons. And then for gentlemen, it would just be a little strap in the back with the buttons. And it would just kind of sit on the back of your head. That way you're not wearing a headband, unless you want to.
Because they're wearing it all day, right? And it's just cutting grooves into that. And she said, I can solve this problem.
Yeah, so she pulled together a handful of seamstresses here in the area, a local church, Life Point, gave them a facility. People donated material from all over southeastern North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina. And gosh, I want to say I think they gave out 10,000 and sent care packages all over the country. Nurses in Washington State, California, Florida, Texas, all the way up to New England. And if you wanted one at New Hanover Regional Medical Center, where we live, you got one.
Yeah.
So every unit they were made available to. So yeah, man, she did that. She worked in the COVID critical stuff as much as I think her soul would allow her to. She picked up shifts. She had a kid not long before the pandemic. And she has been wonderfully active, like she always has been, in Benjamin's life. And then she has the two other boys. So, and she deals with me, and I do everything from home for 2 years.
Yeah. I'm only laughing because I can only imagine your wife goes through what my wife does. We're never going to grow up.
Yeah. The other day, someone said, Brad,
right?
Someone said, Brad, what do you put your wife through? And I was like, Tito's, a tremendous amount of vodka. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people that go, I can't imagine what Camille goes through, because you do some crazy stuff, from flying attack helicopters and doing this and that. And I said, well, I will tell you this. I have told her about, flying air shows and doing those sorts of things. No, I was having the time of my life until I wasn't.
Well, and I got together with two of the dumber people you and I know, and we decided to start a business together that none of us have any experience in. And she said, hold on a second, you're going to do what? and you're going to do it.
And then tell everybody the name of the company.
Yeah. So John and Nate and I had an idea, and we brought on another partner, a guy named Zach. And we had the idea for a t-shirt company called Don't Tell My Mom. So you could go to don'ttellmom.com and buy our t-shirts. This is one of our t-shirts. I like that the first segment was you're ordained, right? And the next segment is a stick figure humping the word cancer. Oh, it's a lot of range of emotions in this segment. But yeah, no,
well, that was a pivot story though. And a lot of the conversations I'm having with people that, well, actually 100%, everybody that I've ever interviewed on this Leadership 101 broadcast has had a pivot moment. So let's talk about the pivot, because you guys are just wanting to do funny t-shirts.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mom. I mean, some of it just, I mean, it's funny, but it's not for everybody. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. But in the middle of this, another one of our friends is diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, 2 types of cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a story we're telling, and talk about the t-shirts and the cancer and our friend Diane, and what you totally turned your plan on its head when you found out Diana had cancer.
So John and I came up with the concept for the company over lunch one day, after one of us said a really inappropriate remark to the other one. We pulled in another idiot. We started talking about what we could do. And man, we had dozens of design ideas, and I was mocking stuff up and sending it to them in emails. We're all getting a good laugh out of it. I pulled in a graphic designer. He said, yeah, man, I'll design for you. Called a web guy, brought him in. And so we had been fooling around with the idea for most of COVID. Yeah, I think don't tell my mom is COVID's fault. That's what we're going to say. And Diana knew about it. She knew about our foolish idea. And then I guess, man, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago. And she said, she called me and John, and she was like, hey guys, can we meet? And that's normally it's, hey, can we get together? Cause I need to laugh, not, hey, can we meet? That was very formal. And so we got together, and she told us what was going on with her. She has 2 kinds of cancer. And she actually started chemotherapy today.
Yeah.
And she is a fully commission-based saleswoman in service industry, in a flooring company.
She's quite good at it.
Very good.
I'm standing on the floor she put in my house right now.
So am I. That's funny.
How about that?
Yeah. And we got a backsplash down there too. That's from her as well.
So what's her catchphrase? If you can walk on it, I've got you
covered. Yeah. And she told us what was going on, and I don't know. John is a cancer survivor. He survived stage 3 colorectal cancer. It'll be 5 years for him in June. So we want him to get there.
And I have to say, a hell of a guy too.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope he doesn't see this. Never mind. I take that back. He's obnoxious. Yeah, you said it. I just agree.
True. Well, I also am the guy that called you brilliant.
Yeah. So
it was so funny to me.
Your bar is very low.
It was funny to me that you heard that I had said that out loud on some broadcast.
Chamber event.
Yeah, it was a chamber event, and I said Brad's a brilliant marketer, and somebody went and told you I said that. 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I branded you.
4 chamber members called me and said, Jeff Moss says you're brilliant. And I said, can't wait to meet him.
Yeah.
Don't even know the guy. But Diana told us what was going on. John professionally is in group benefits, asked her about her benefits. Again, she's fully commission based. So she's essentially a contracted employee.
Yeah.
She doesn't have that kind of great health coverage. We left her. We immediately called each other, and I was like, how bad is it going to be? He forecasted kind of the cost with his experience in both profession and then personally enduring it.
Yeah.
And it was a number that is not small. And her husband, Tom, works at a local hardware store, and she's in sales. And I was like, man, well, John, what if I called Nate and I said, let's sell shirts 3 months earlier than we were planning to. Let's get rid of all of our designs. Let's table everything. And let's make designs that are about nothing but either cancer. Can we make cancer funny? And then shirts about her. Mm-hmm. And he said, and then what? And then give her all the money.
Yeah.
And he was like, so like, we'll buy the shirts. Yeah. And we'll print the shirts. Yeah. We'll ship the shirts. Yeah. We'll cover that cost. Yes. And then every other penny, we'll just give to her.
Mm-hmm.
And
all your profits.
I was like, yeah, man, that's what we're going to do. And he said, I'm in, call Nate. Called Nate. told him what was going on. Like anyone else in the world,
So
Nate.
you got to tell who Nate is. Nate Lingerfeld.
So Nate is also, we work together a lot. He owns a promotional products company here in Wilmington, but it's kind of family. His dad also is in the industry. His mom is in the industry in Charlotte. So they really, really know their stuff as it uniforms, large scale white labeling of marketing merchandise, and then the stuff for the independent.
He makes all of my uniform shirts for my company.
Yeah. I've
got
got
phenomenal work.
I mean, I've got I could easily do a Nate Lingerfeld show.
Yeah.
Of just things that I've got in my office that he made. And he's terrific. Our families get along really well. He lives really, really close to me.
You know, the common thread between all three of you guys, and I don't know the fourth guy. Heart's the size of Texas. I mean, how many people just spin on a dime and say, no, we're not going to do what we intended to do.
Yeah.
We're going to do something for Diana. And not one person said, well, what's in it for us?
Right.
What are we getting from it? It was all about doing the right thing for her. And I just got to tell you, man, it just makes my heart pound.
Well, we launched that. Thank you, brother. We launched that 2 weeks ago today. And as of about 3:00 this afternoon, we've raised close to $2,000 in sales for her. And so if you know much about, that means we've sold close to 100 items.
I was going to say, that's a lot of t-shirts, man.
It's a lot of t-shirts, man. We only have 6 designs. Most of the shirts come in 3 colors, depending on the designs.
Yeah.
Like this is probably one of the more mild ones.
Mm-hmm.
If you one of them I didn't design, but I did get to design the rest of them. But yeah, man, we have an event coming up on April 20th, where Port City Young Professionals bought like 14, 15 shirts for individuals who were a part of something else that PCYP was doing. Yeah. And then half of those individuals turned around and said, make that a part of a donation and make it a part of PCYP's 13-year anniversary on the 20th this month. So after PCYP is over, there's going to be an after party at Waterman's Brewing, and it's going to be heavily focused on Don't Tell My Mom and raising money for Diana. So yeah, man, a lot of cool stuff's going on. We're excited. We're having a blast.
I am so happy for you guys. I think that, Don't Tell My Mom, although the name says a lot about the t-shirts. Some of them, I mean, we sat around at a coffee shop, you and Nate and I, and we just focused on the religious side, because there's going to be different segments. And as we were talking about a t-shirt, I think I suggested to you guys, Bible verses. What part of judge not do you not understand?
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a simple concept, right?
There's definitely, this could be a horrible rabbit trail. There's definitely one where we've got Jesus kind of with his hands open, and then a bunch of like very negative signs in the back. And he's like, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. The fun thing about the design aspect of it is that we come up with a concept and then we start mocking it up, and it's a lot of fun because the edits that we make they're just silly sentences. Like someone questioning the grammar of the way a cuss word was used is funny. So yeah, we had a blast. We continue to have a blast. I wish it could make millions of dollars so that I would just make dumb t-shirts for a living. But we don't really know what the limit is. We've already had some people talk to us about potentially branding other kinds of merchandise. And we've said that means we might have to call people about investing, because we don't really know. Like if we move into like the chachi,
you need to get hooked up with Damon John or somebody on the Shark. I want to see you guys on the Shark Tank.
I just want to be bought by FUBU. So Damon John can.
Well, if you go into the Shark Tank, we got to find a role for me. I want to go. I'll just go ahead and put that on the plate.
Can you imagine this? This is like a pitch. Hey, we're children. We are children who had seed money, and we did something dumb.
Mark Cuban would buy it in a heartbeat, brother.
That'd be awesome.
Cuban would be all over it.
He can buy as many of them as he wants.
Well, before we even start recording, I told you we're going to be at 45 minutes probably before we even realize it, and we probably are. So just to kind of wrap things up, we talked about marketing. We talked about how you got there. We talked about your new company, Don't Tell My Mom. And I really want to make sure, and I'm going to put it in the byline, by the way, for posting this on LinkedIn and everywhere, and encourage everybody watching this broadcast to do it. Put it in there. Where do you order a shirt for Diana? Where do folks need to go to find that?
Yeah, right now, and for as long as she's the only thing that we're doing, and I think we're going to do that at least for a couple months. It's don'ttellmom.com. Just a warning. If you go to don'ttellmymom.com, you will not see t-shirts.
Okay. Then we better make sure that's right.
Let's be super clear.
So it's Don't Tell Mom. Don'ttellmom.com.
And if you go to the wrong one, I promise you we didn't create that website.
I'm so thankful you said that, because I'm the guy that would have made that mistake and then heard about it. Oh my mercy.
Yeah. Yes, don'ttellmom.com is the website. We're on all the social media things. You can see the shirts. There are 6 different shirts. If you make a purchase of over $100, we waive shipping. If you want to do a business matching, we've got a local business say that for every one of our first 100 shirts, they're going to give us $10 to just give to her. So at the end of 100 shirts, she's getting an additional $1,000 donation now.
Okay. And
so if businesses want to partner with us, if people just want to jump on board, if we've had a couple companies come to us and say, you know, our founder lost their life to cancer. There's one that's a little bit worse than this. And it will just say, it says what you're seeing. And I'm not going to say that on your show, but it says it. And then it has a weird tagline underneath of it. You just go to the website and then there's a company that bought 10 of them. And on a given day, every week, that's what people are going to wear at the office.
Oh, my mercy.
It's awesome. I can't imagine walking into an office and seeing everyone with an F cancer shirt, but okay.
You know, so there are some of the shirts that are purely for Diana with her name on it, Fight for Diana and this sort of thing. But there are also just shirts like you're wearing for people that are just frankly angry at cancer. Yeah. And they want to make a statement about it because maybe they've got a friend or family member that suffered. So
yeah, man, this is currently our #1 seller. We can do it in black, red, and gray right now. Okay. And we can go extra small all the way up to quad X. And we ship anywhere. Yeah, man, it's been a blast. It's fun to work with my friends most of the time. It's fun to see how our natures kind of pop out. I am very much a CEO and they are not. And it is very funny to we'll bump heads and then within seconds.
Well, you remember the other day you were standing there when I told Nate his biggest thing is learning how to grow and how to be big, right?
Right.
I can just see that conversation.
Yes. Yeah. We've already had it. I mean, we have had people say, you know, what's next? And we're like, we're 2 weeks old.
Dude, we've got to do another one of these because what I just said is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
How do you scale? How do you learn to be big? How do you surround yourself with people smarter than you? That's a whole nother level of the onion we need to peel back. But so I'm going to wrap it up. Folks, you've gotten to sit here and listen and meet Brad Caldwell. He's the CEO of Spark Business Strategies, CEO of Don't Tell Mom, not that other website, Don't Tell Mom. And Brad, I can tell you personally, has helped so many business owners, not only just in Wilmington. Brad is a national speaker. Brad is helping people all over the country. He's got famous clients. He's not just some guy from Wilmington married to a critical care nurse with 3 children. So I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast. Brad, you've got to come back and we'll do a whole nother topic and peel back this onion even more. Yeah. It's all about helping people grow and helping them recognize that entrepreneur within them and to help build the confidence. Our next guest is probably going to be a U.S. Naval Academy graduate, an F-14 Tomcat pilot, and a guy that did very, very well in real estate. And this is the first person that I actually don't know. And I guess I really didn't know Stephanie Stuckey, but I knew her from all of my reading. This is going to be a really interesting broadcast. So for Leadership 101, Brad Caldwell, ladies and gentlemen, a brilliant man. I'm Jeff Moss. I hope you have a blessed evening.